Democratic socialists at another of their conventions, they were told to make jazz hands instead of clapping, lest some delegates suffer sensory overload. And also, and I'm not joking, they were told not to be wearing, any aggressive scents.
Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people.
Oh, for f***'s sake. This city-run grocery stores? No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods. Governor-elect Spanberger once said about Biden's presidency that, quote, nobody elected him to be FDR. They elected him to be normal. Normal!
What happens when one of the loudest voices on the left suddenly starts warning his own side that they're heading for disaster? That's exactly what just happened with Bill Maher, and when Maher sounds the alarm, people tend to listen. Maher has never been shy about roasting Republicans. But when his own party starts drifting into territory he thinks is politically suicidal, he doesn't whisper about it. He detonates the conversation. This time his message to Democrats was blunt. Keep going down this road, and you could wreck your chances of winning elections.
You don't see it right away.
And if you know Maher, you know his style.
You're bad, stupid,
sharp,
and deplorable.
ruthless, and
as if you were saying,
honest.
duh, 2 + 2 = 5. Isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say shit. Math is racist. Queers for Palestine. Looting is cool. Healthy at any weight? If the men's football team played the women's team, it would be a tie. You can't just say shit.
Maher didn't hold back when he took aim at what he calls the growing woke orthodoxy inside the Democratic Party. His argument is simple but uncomfortable. You can't just say things because they sound morally fashionable and expect voters to applaud. Not anymore. We live in a hyper-connected era where every claim gets dissected in real time. Social media, podcasts, independent media, everyone is fact-checking everyone else. Voters aren't passive anymore. They're skeptical, and they're paying attention. Maher's warning was brutal in its simplicity. You can't manufacture reality and expect voters to go along with it. Stretch the truth, ignore contradictions, and sooner or later people notice. And when voters start feeling like a party is disconnected from reality, the punishment doesn't come on Twitter. It comes at the ballot box.
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet.
But Maher didn't stop with cultural politics. He also zeroed in on the Democratic Party's growing flirtation with socialist rhetoric. Polling trends show a noticeable shift inside the party. Roughly 2/3 of Democrats now say they view socialism favorably, while less than half say the same about capitalism. For Maher, that's not just an interesting statistic. It's a flashing political warning sign. Because outside activist circles and progressive strongholds, the word socialism still triggers deep skepticism among many American voters. To critics, it suggests government overreach and economic stagnation. Maher's concern isn't theoretical. If Democrats wrap themselves too tightly in that label, they risk handing their opponents the easiest attack line in politics. And elections are often decided by voters who already feel uneasy about that word.
We already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is socialism, much of it appropriate to soften the edges of capitalism, but the DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that?
Maher is quick to acknowledge something many activists overlook. The United States already has policies that resemble socialist ideas. Programs like Social Security, Medicare, public schools, and emergency services all rely on collective investment. But Maher's warning is about where the line is drawn. Supporting a safety net is one thing. Rebranding the party around socialism is another. In politics, perception often matters more than nuance. And Maher argues that aggressively leaning into that label risks frightening moderate voters who might otherwise support reform. He's seen this movie before. Strategic decisions ignored by party leaders, followed by painful electoral losses later. His message this time is simple: learn from the past, or prepare to repeat it.
Hamburger once said about Biden's presidency that, quote, nobody elected him to be FDR. They elected him to be normal. Normal! You know, at this year's DSA convention, or as it's commonly known, Comic-Con, get this, you had to submit a photo of a negative COVID test to get in.
What really frustrates Maher is what he sees as a toxic combination forming inside the party. Ideological purity tests mixed with increasingly radical economic messaging. In his view, that fusion is pushing Democrats away from the political center. And here's the uncomfortable truth about American elections: the center is where most of them are decided. Maher argues that when messaging becomes more about signaling virtue than solving real problems, voters begin to tune out. Worse, they begin to turn away. Parties don't win by preaching to the already convinced. They win by persuading the middle. And Maher believes Democrats are forgetting that basic rule of politics.
That there are two pillars that this country is founded on. One is democracy, and one is capitalism, free markets. And it seems like one party wants to get rid of one, and the other party wants to get rid of the other, right? The Republicans are not that, democracy is just not number one on their list. It just isn't. It isn't. It's behind Christianity and a few other things. And the Democrats, I mean, I read these 74% are for democratic socialism. Only 16% favor capitalism. Is this going to be a country that I don't recognize in 5 to 10 years if we don't have these two pillars?
Maher also pushed back against the constant claim that democracy itself is on the verge of collapse. His argument flips the narrative. The bigger danger to Democrats, he says, may not be some sudden dictatorship. It may be a party drifting so far ideologically that it loses the voters it needs to survive. Polling trends showing growing openness towards socialism among Democratic voters suggest the party could look very different in the future. Maher even floated the possibility that openly socialist candidates could soon dominate Democratic primaries. And if that happens, the general election battlefield could become far more difficult. Because when a political party moves faster than the country usually pushes back.
The Democrats going with this. If Mondami is the face of the Democrats on the East Coast and Katie Porter is the face on the West Coast, I don't know if that's great politically for that party.
Maher's skepticism ultimately comes down to something deeply ingrained in American culture. For many voters, capitalism, despite its flaws, still represents opportunity. The belief that hard work can build something, that ambition can pay off. People criticize the system all the time. But criticizing something is very different from wanting to replace it entirely. Maher believes most Americans want reform, not revolution. Make the system fairer. Fix what's broken. Expand opportunity. But dismantle the system altogether? That's where a lot of voters draw the line. And confusing reform with replacement could become politically disastrous.
Democratic socialists at another of their conventions, they were told to make jazz hands instead of clapping, lest some delegates suffer sensory overload. And also, and I'm not joking, they were told not to be wearing, any aggressive scents.
Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people.
Oh, for f***'s sake. This...
Maher has also reached his limit with what he sees as the rise of performative politics. Too many viral slogans. Too many symbolic gestures. Too much energy spent impressing activists online instead of addressing real-world concerns. Meanwhile, most voters are focused on far more practical issues: jobs, affordability, safety, and stability. When political messaging drifts too far away from those everyday concerns, voters notice. And when voters feel ignored, they start looking elsewhere. Maher believes that disconnect is creating an opening for political opponents to exploit.
They have gone out of their way to post messages on social media about the current Trump administration and what's happening to American lives. The problem is, they're all literally saying the same damn thing. Don't believe me? Check it out.
If I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse. Not better. The prices of grocery, gas, household
Now you see why Stephen A. Smith was in the polls as a presidential candidate? See what I'm talking about? You see that idiocy right there?
And Maher isn't the only one raising concerns about the party's direction. Even figures outside traditional political commentary, like sports media personality Stephen A. Smith, have voiced frustration with what they see as ineffective messaging and political theater. Smith's critique isn't wrapped in ideological language. His focus is simpler: results. Are politicians solving problems? Are they connecting with voters? Or are they just creating headlines? When voices from completely different corners of media start asking the same questions, it signals something bigger than one comedian's rant. It suggests a deeper anxiety about strategy, and whether the party is losing touch with the people it claims to represent.
Would 22 Democratic senators be literally echoing the same thing and think that would resonate with the American people? All it shows is that the same fabric of our democracy is unchanging in the eyes of some of these officials, and as a result, the constituency they represent, which is why Donald Trump is in office. What, do I have to come up to Capitol Hill and give you lessons? Seriously, you don't get it? All you did, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Chuck Schumer. Let's all get together, let's put this in a prompter, and all together, albeit in separate rooms, we'll grab a microphone and say the same damn thing. And that's what's going to resonate with the American people. And then you wonder why you're no longer in power.
In the end, Maher's warning doesn't come from hatred for his party. It comes from frustration and fear that it's drifting toward political self-destruction. His message is blunt. You cannot win national elections by talking only to activists while ignoring everyday Americans. And when longtime allies like Bill Maher, and even commentators like Stephen A. Smith, start ringing the alarm bell, it suggests the problem may be deeper than party leaders want to admit. Maher's challenge to Democrats is simple but urgent: reconnect with reality. Focus on practical issues. Stop chasing ideological approval at the expense of public trust. Because if that course correction doesn't happen soon, the consequences won't just be criticism. They'll be defeat.